life's. You know, I'm a narrative artist and I do storytelling, and I really have this strong desire to kind of tell stories about things that aren't from our own time. I kind of feel like there's a certain sort of, I don't know, disconnect that a person can have from the object. Even if the object is this kind of, you know, kind of creepy, scary-looking thing, the fact that this thing came from a different time period kind of takes it out of your immediate context, and you kind of start inventing stories that go along with it. That's kind of where I want my work to be, is that area where you can kind of look at it, you understand that it came from something, it has some sort of history to it, and I start making that history kind of get revealed through all these different layers of slip and almost peeled up paint. I'm thinking a lot about wooden objects, a lot about like cast iron objects, and how when I was a kid I used to work in my dad's woodworking shop, and I was kind of in charge of stripping out old furniture and taking out the old finishes, and so he sent me back these beautiful chairs that were really old, and all this crackled paint was on there, and I'd have to sit there and kind of take it back down and erase all that history that was built up on me for 40, 50, 60 years and make it look new again. And that had a big impact on kind of what I like to do. I like to kind of keep that history there. I like people to kind of find that and develop their own narrative. You know, the thing is pretty prominent, has a definite story to it. That fact that you kind of, like I said, disconnect from where it is in terms of like time period and kind of invent something. Going forward with the surfaces when I work on, I'm really thinking about this age. I'm thinking about things like, archaeology was found, it was buried in the mud. I think about how it was sitting in there. If I want to make it look like it was buried up to its neck in mud, I kind of really think about applying slips in a certain way to make it look like that. So I'm going to kind of take you through that kind of process a little bit, okay? Kind of that crackle paint book. So that's the first layer, the first process. I'll go and put some of this on. I mean, you can mix it up however you like to mix it. I usually send mine run through a sieve, make it nice and smooth. It's kind of the consistency of, I don't know, everybody uses food terms. I don't know what this stuff is. It's not. It's thick. It's thick. It's not pudding, okay? It's like runny pudding. Where this thing's at, how it's buried, where I found it, kind of give it that history that's not there yet. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that. So now I'm thinking about. You apply this slip, the more it's going to crack. It wants to be kind of thin cracks, you apply it really thin. If you want to be really thick, there's about enough of this slip on here. Now the next kind of like part of this is, I'm thinking about paint, how paint peels up, how over time that kind of paint bubbles, kind of lifts up, you kind of see different layers of paint. That part's done with the same slip and some newspaper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of create layers of paint or slip. You don't need a lot of newspaper to do this. Put it on a board. Coat this piece of newspaper. It's a half a sheet of newspaper. I usually don't work with any more than a half a sheet at a time because I'm going to take this and I'm going to actually load it up with slip. I'm going to dry it with my torch, load it up with slip a couple times. I'm going to actually apply this. I'm going to stick it on there. I'm going to apply it as if it's like wallpaper. And I'm going to pull back and it's going to leave a little bit of residue. We're going to get these areas that look kind of like they're chunks of paint on there. So there's been stuck on there for a long time and it's kind of filled up. That paint that just ain't quite come off over time. So that's what's going to happen. You can really see it on this side. Right. Back to this. One coat. We'll have a sheet of paper. Just use like a little bit of some sort of chip brush. Doesn't matter what kind of brush it really is. Now, there is kind of an importance to how you put this on. If I'm thinking about this being painted on, I'm going to put it all on in one direction. It's kind of like if I painted a kiln shell, put it all on in one direction. It'll keep it from, actually it'll add the cracks. I'll make the cracks happen kind of in a certain orientation based on how I brush it on. So if I'm brushing, I'm going to do one coat for right now. And it may burn in some spots, but it's okay. I'm going to dry this because I want to put another coat on there right away, and I want it to be thicker than what it is right now. I'm doing a little circular motion. It's still really wet. You'll know when I start drying because the paper is going to want to start curling up. And it's actually going to change color. You kind of see it drying up down there really well. You kind of start seeing some of the cracks happening. I'm going to kind of stop. A couple more coats on there. It's going to flatten all back out here. It's going to kind of smooth out. It's not going to be wrinkled up anymore. Alright, I'm going to dry this one more time. You guys are going to watch paint today. If they're coming from molds. So I'm kind of watching this, okay? What I'm looking for is I'm drying this. Yeah, I'm up here just doing this. You guys kind of wonder what I'm doing, what I'm looking for. But this stuff, you can see this. It looks really, when you're right up close, you can see that it looks really wet. And as I'm drying with the torch, you can see that sheen kind of just go away. Once that sheen goes away, it's good enough. Okay, it's dry. Before I do this last coat on there, I'm going to do 3 coats on this one because it's not quite as thick as I want it to be. If this was a little bit thicker, then it'd be 2 coats. But it needs to be, I don't know, it's like a skin. I can't really explain how thick it is, but it's almost like double the thickness of the paper by the time I'm doing triple the thickness of the paper. So I'm going to, this let this sit. I need to do one thing to this. I just need to wet this down again a little bit. I squirt this over. I want to be somewhat close to the same, I guess, moisture content. When I go to apply this, it'll help it stick a little bit better. So I'm just going to wet it down, just let it sit for a little bit. Alright, so that thing takes that sheen off and then it's ready to apply. Do you guys see that sheen at all? I'm going to divide this sheet in half, and this paper is wet. It's going to rip pretty easily, so I'm going to, you know, has anybody ever worked with like paper mache, newspaper, there's a grain to newspaper? If you didn't know that, like it only rips one way really, the long way. So I'm going to go ahead and rip it the long way. If you try to rip it the other way, you kind of just get chunks. So I want a nice strip here to work with, and I'm going to take a strip up. So now I have my slip strip. And this is one of those things where it's kind of like you have to kind of look at this piece and think about, okay, where is this paint peeling up from, and where do you... So I'm going to hold it, and I'm thinking, I always revert back to the right side. Always the side is down for me. So I'm going to go ahead and start there. I'm going to apply, the way I apply this, I'm not going to press this whole piece on there. I'm thinking about a strip of paint stuck to this thing over time, so I'm using a finger. I'm going to just press on there, like this one strip right here, right down the middle of this thing. I'm going to turn it so everybody can see it here. So I'm just pressing down in the center. I don't want this whole thing stuck to this. And I'm going to pull up. And it's stuck. So it won't stick everywhere. It's not intended to stick everywhere, but you'll have these edges. Now this is like a decision point. Okay, you want this thing to really look like it's stuck down, or you want these edges to be kind of visible. Sometimes I'll go in there, I'll just tap it down a little bit with my finger, because I want to make sure it's stuck on there well, but I also just don't want it to be such a hard, crisp edge. That kind of, for one, it can be sharp when you put some glazes on there, but it can also just be something that chips off too. So I'll just tap it down a little bit. I'm going to kind of think about some more paint stuck on this. Same side. I'm working up. I'm thinking of it all kind of going the same, peeling off the same way, as all put on the same way. It's all going to peel off the same way. Sometimes it doesn't want to stick, so you really got to rub, you got to burnish it. So here I'm applying this again. Again, it's a pressing down and not pressing too much part. And you got to think about how it's sticking in the cracks. I don't know how much I want to put on here. You're seeing the same thing over and over. I'm going to entertain you guys, so we'll do a big chunk on the back here. So you kind of see where that's kind of peeling off, and that's not going to ever make it. That's just a bad spot. So I'm either going to just remove that